Joining me now is Fred Guttenberg, who lost his 14-year-old daughter, Jamie, in the Parkland school shooting 5 years ago. He's the co-author with criminologist Thomas Gabor of the new book, American Carnage, Shattering the Myths That Fuel Gun Violence. Fred, I wish we were meeting again like this under different circumstances. You and I last saw each other when I emceed the Brady Action Awards on April 26th. There have been 20 mass shootings, including yesterday's tragedy in Texas. What's it going to take to stop this?
You know, I'm glad you brought up Brady. Brady and I, for 2 years, have been working on an initiative to engage the business community to get more involved in doing something about gun violence. Because the truth is, bad legislators and bad legislation, and Texas is ground zero for that, have passed the risk and cost of gun violence off to the business community. Texas is going as far as to punish businesses who want to do something about reducing gun violence. And so the first thing I would say is to any CEO who is watching this interview, reach out to Brady and become involved in our effort. That's number one. Number two, stop listening to the liars who put us in this place. Jonathan, my daughter would be 20 years old in July. 20 years ago, there were 200 million weapons in America. In only 20 years, we've more than doubled the number of weapons. And in only 20 years, AR-15 sales have gone from fewer than 2% of all guns sold to 25%. We listened to the liars for 20 years. They conned America and they put us in this place. Stop listening to them. It's time for America to vote only for candidates who want to reduce gun violence. They don't need to be a candidate you fall in love with. They don't need to be a perfect candidate, but they better want to reduce gun violence and get up and vote for them.
So then, Fred, I'm listening to you, especially your call to action about voting for people who are, pro-gun safety. There was a Fox News poll that came out last week or so that showed, without question, overwhelming majorities of Americans support any manner, basically all manner of gun safety legislation. What's the disconnect here? Why can't the desires of the American people find their way into the halls of Congress where something can be done?
Well, it's part of why we wrote American Carnage, because the debate was always framed the wrong way for the American people. It was either you were pro-gun or anti-gun. Instead of being supportive of gun owners, but anti-gun violence, hating gun violence. And listen, let's stay in Texas. One of the people who has been at the forefront of framing the debate the wrong way is Senator Ted Cruz. I had the unfortunate experience of debating him for 90 minutes about 2 years ago with Alyssa Milano and Ben Jackson. And he is someone who is despicable, but who, through his words and actions, along with the governor of Texas, made this possible. And so I think for the American people, we're now clear on what this means. You can't shop, you can't go to school, you can't go to a place of worship, you can't go to a movie theater, you can't go to a park, because we listened to them. Stop listening to them. Texas, you have a choice in 24. Vote for Colin Allred.
Let's keep talking about Texas, because last year it passed a law to allow people to carry guns without a license. And in fact, half of the states in the country don't require a license to carry a handgun. How do we change that?
Well, listen, and again, because we listened to the liars. It's the reason we are where we are today. And we change that by being honest. They lied to America about what that would do for us and our safety. And we change that by voting for different people who recognize that's not good for public safety. It's not anti-gun to say we need to have appropriate measures in place to reduce gun violence. And expecting somebody to pass a background check, get a permit, and do appropriate training isn't a big ask of anybody.
Fred, you mentioned a moment ago that your daughter would have been 20 years old this year, this summer.
Yeah.
How do you, and I think you're no stranger to MSNBC viewers, You are on our airwaves all the time, unfortunately, because mass shootings are happening all the time. Where do you find the strength to carry on this mission? You're reliving trauma, it seems, every day. How do you keep going?
I live with the sound of the shot that killed my daughter, which I unfortunately heard because I was on the phone with my son in my head. I visit my daughter at a cemetery. I have a son and a wife and family and friends who every day have to live with the reality of what happened to my family. And as long as that's my reality, I can't stop working to stop the next one. You know, I have guilt that my voice wasn't a part of this before it was my kid. But we're gonna fix this. America deserves better, and this needs to be the dominant voting issue of 24. We can fix this. We passed the Safer Communities Act in July, and there's just so much more we need to do. And America, stop trying to fall in love with candidates. Vote for candidates who want to reduce gun violence and get out and vote.
And Fred, last question to you. You know, Allen, Texas is now just the latest city, the latest town, community, excuse me, that has to deal with gun violence. What are your words of advice to all those families, those 8 families of the 8 who were killed? What do you say to them to help them get through the next few hours, next few days, months and years without their loved ones?
You know, for today, work on just getting through the seconds and the minutes, because it's a whirlwind. You're consoling each other. You have funerals to plan. You have a reality to come to grips with that you never expected, and only focus on being with those you love and who love you and getting through the seconds and the minutes. The time will come for you to use your voice. For some, it may be in a matter of days. For some, it may be a matter of weeks, months, or even years. And there's no right or wrong way. So my immediate advice to everyone is just for the next week, really focus on taking care of those you love and who love you. You know, I wrote about my entire experience in my first book, Find the Helpers. I will tell you, I don't get through it without the helpers in my life. I will be forever grateful. And so to all of you who are now going through this, don't go through it alone.
Fred Guttenberg, thank you for coming to the Sunday Show, and just thank you for your voice and advocacy.
Thanks, Jonathan.